Clever filmmaking is built on a number of pillars for success. You need great characters, intelligent, satisfying story development, entertainment, and some sort of emotional truth. In other words, you need things that grip your audience and keep them there for the 2 hours or so it takes to spin your yarn. Some of the greatest ever films use twists, red herrings, embedded foreshadowing, and downright cheating in order to achieve their goals. And one of the smartest tricks that can be played happens when a filmmaker sets out to foreshadow particular events happening, only to pull the rug out from under you with an entirely different resolution, the old red herring switcheroo. With all that in mind, I'm Will from WhatCulture.com, and this is 9 movies that scammed you with fake foreshadowing. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 9. Han's Bad Feelings, Star Wars Episode 6. In the final film of the original Star Wars trilogy, Han Solo gets the feeling that he's never going to see the Millennium Falcon again. It's basically a giant red flag that Han is about to be killed off, probably because he actually was going to be killed off at one point in the early planning stages. The foreshadowing was helped by the fact that Solo's bad feelings have tended to be spot on, almost like he had some sort of built-in precognitive ability, so it was impossible not to suspect that he might be right about his own fate. In fact, Han did see the Millennium Falcon again because he wasn't killed off. He even lived long enough to lose the ship again and re-find it in The Force Awakens, at which point the foreshadowing grew too strong for even him and his happiness at being home, a surefire dead meat signaler that led to his spectacular demise at the hands of his own son. Number 8. Modesty is an Obscurial, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. When Graves sets Credence Barebone to the task of finding him an Obscurus, all evidence points to his own younger sister Modesty. As the film establishes, all Obscurials are under the age of 10, since they're killed quickly when the Obscurus bursts out of them, and all have repressed magical abilities. Then we meet Modesty, and she's the archetypal creepy kid who secretly owns a wand and has been abused by their anti-magical mother. The film wants us to think that she's definitely the Obscurial. It actually turned out that it was her brother Credence who was the Obscurial for all the reasons Modesty appeared to be one, and he's not the usual kind of Obscurial either, because his baseline magical powers were off the charts, meaning his Obscurus didn't kill him when he had his episodes and meant he could retain his human form and transform basically at will. Number 7. Frank's Dead Meat Signs, Unstoppable. On the face of it, Unstoppable looks like your typical grizzled old hero gives it all to save the day sort of movie. Denzel Washington plays Frank Barnes, a veteran train engineer forced into early retirement who defies his superiors to help stop a runaway train from crashing and killing thousands. At various points in the film, it's established that he's basically dead meat walking. He has a family photo indicating he has someone to die for, he's coming to the end of his job, not even by his own choice, and at one point he literally says to younger co-worker Will, "Don't get sentimental on me, it makes me feel like I'm going to die." In short, it looks like he's definitely going to die, stopping the killer train. Instead, Frank gets his day to shine, defying his superiors who threaten to sack a man they've already forced to retire, and saving the day without even dying the slightest bit. Number 6. Chekhov's shirt means he's dead meat, Star Trek Into Darkness. As everyone who's watched more than a couple of Star Trek episodes knows, the red shirts on the Enterprise are the expendable characters. They don't even get names. It's such a notorious trope, in fact, that it's even lampooned in Galaxy Quest. So when Chekhov was forced to put on a red shirt in Star Trek Into Darkness, it looked like he was doomed. He even seemed to be aware of the trope himself, since he looked horrified. It wasn't Chekhov who ended up dying though, as Captain Kirk flipped expectations and sacrificed himself temporarily to save the ship and his crew. Despite the red attire, Chekhov made it to the end alive and well. Number 5. The creepy stalker did it, The Bodyguard. When it turns out in The Bodyguard that Whitney Houston's Rachel is being stalked, her security guard Frank quickly assumes that it's the same creepy stalker played by Tony Pierce that is trying to kill her, because that's what overzealous fans do. He even looks creepy and isn't given a name other than the Stalker in the cast, as if to dehumanize him into a villain even more. The Bodyguard is the ultimate if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck retort movies, since it turns out that the Stalker is just a stalker and not an attempted murderer at all, because he's not that bad of a bad guy, although stalking is still very, very bad. Instead, it was Rachel's sister all along, who hired a hitman to kill her famous sister in a fit of jealous rage, assisted by some drugs. Number 4. Django will hang. Django Unchained. Not long after the start of Django Unchained, when Django teams up with his fellow bounty hunter, the two ride into town looking for their first contract. Conspicuously in the foreground, Tarantino frames a noose hanging into the shot, and as Django rides in, his head is captured for a second in the middle of the noose. It's the kind of clever foreshadowing you might expect from a filmmaker as in love with narrative imagery as Tarantino, and it definitely feels like a suggestion that Django will end the movie hanging from a rope around his neck. Despite the fact that Quentin Tarantino has a bit of a penchant for killing main characters, Django survives one of the bloodiest finales in all his director's works and gets to ride off into the sunset with his wife. Number 3. The Invisible Man did it. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. If in doubt, always suspect the shifty criminal type who can disappear from the scene of any crime as effortlessly as removing all his clothes. That's exactly what the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen seems to set up with the Invisible Man. When it's revealed that the League has a mole, suspicion falls on Skinner, who mysteriously disappears just as the hints start to appear of a traitor. Given the fact he's revealed as a turncoat in the comics, he seems like the likeliest candidate. In reality, Skinner might be a thief, but he still has principles. It turns out that it's actually Dorian Gray who is the traitor, who has been stealing DNA from the heroes to make a superhuman formula to sell to the highest bidder. Skinner merely disappeared to track the real traitor and popped up later to help the League find him and his boss, and he actually ends up saving the day as well. Number 2. Bishop's the villain. Aliens. After Ripley's experience with the treacherous Ash in the first Alien, she's inevitably mistrusting of androids. They're subject to orders from their superiors after all, and as Ripley knows, their superiors can be a bunch of dicks. So we are led to follow Ripley's lead and distrust Alien's resident droid Bishop, who is just as shifty as Ash and initially appears to be cut from the same villainous cloth. That counts doubly when he's seen examining some dead facehuggers as if he too is working to bring a xenomorph back to the company. But Bishop is actually the good guy. He actually ends up helping lead the escape from the infested planet, taking critical damage in the process and earning Ripley's trust. Number 1. Hawkeye is dead meat. Avengers: Age of Ultron. After he was set up as the most expendable of all the Avengers for the first Avengers movie, Hawkeye goes through Age of Ultron basically collecting dead meat qualifiers. He's retired from active duty and goes back for one last job. He ends up mentoring 2 kids, and it's revealed he has a secret family that he intends to return to once everything is dealt with. Hawkeye ends up being one of the heroes of the piece, helping Scarlet Witch through the Sokovian battle, while her brother Quicksilver sacrifices himself to save Hawkeye from the death that seemed inevitable. And there you have it, folks, 9 movies that scammed us all with fake foreshadowing. Leave a comment with your own favourite movie bluffs down below, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe and visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. This is Will for What Culture, and thanks for watching.